Imagine for a moment that you're standing in the heart of a bustling modern metropolis. Data is flowing invisibly all around you, connecting everything in an instant. Now, imagine taking that exact same invisible, high-speed network and dropping it directly into the past. What actually happens if we take the cutting edge of artificial intelligence and hand it to the rulers of an ancient, sprawling civilization? Today, we're exploring a massive counterfactual experiment, the collision of modern AI and the sheer, raw history of the Mughal Empire. What happens when these two radically different worlds meet? We're not building a science fiction fantasy here. We're running a precision test. We want to see how a vastly powerful technology behaves when it's forced to work inside a deeply entrenched historical system. We're talking about a world of calculating courtiers, immense armies, and incredibly tense political rivalries. It's an unexpectedly brilliant way to peel back the layers of history and discover exactly how technology interacts with raw human power. To understand this collision, there is one absolute rule we have to anchor ourselves to. Artificial intelligence does not replace the logic of empire. It amplifies it. Think of it as a massive force multiplier. It doesn't magically invent new outcomes out of thin air. Instead, it takes whatever system is already in place and dials it up to its absolute limit. In a robust, healthy system, it makes coordination remarkably sharp, but in a fragile one, it dramatically intensifies instability and paranoia. The truth is, technology alone cannot overcome history. So how would an emperor actually use this kind of power? Once we stop treating AI like magic, we realize its true impact in an imperial setting comes down to changing three fundamental things: how information travels across vast distances, how rulers make their decisions, and how reliably their commands actually translate into action on the ground. To really grasp this, we can break the impact down into 5 specific levers. The first of those levers is speed. Every ancient empire suffered from a built-in delay. The emperor was always acting on old news. But AI obliterates that delay, dramatically reducing the time between a signal and a reaction. Imagine a massive, sprawling household where messages used to take weeks to travel from room to room. Suddenly, an intercom is installed, and everyone can be heard instantly. The family doesn't necessarily get any wiser, but they do notice things much faster. A quicker bad decision is still a bad decision, but the entire heartbeat of the empire changes. That new speed feeds directly into the second lever, scale. Human attention is naturally limited. An emperor simply cannot read the tax reports from every single distant village. AI shatters that limitation, massively expanding a ruler's field of awareness. It's like a busy shopkeeper suddenly hiring a lightning-fast assistant who instantly flags exactly which provinces are underreporting their grain harvests. But there's a serious catch here. Spotting a problem is not the same thing as possessing the institutional strength to fix it. Knowing a frontier is unstable doesn't automatically summon the troops needed to secure it. The third lever is coordination. Massive systems usually fail when their different parts fall out of sync. At its core, governing the Mughal state was an enormous coordination puzzle. AI could brilliantly align scattered information into a single, cohesive picture, almost like orchestrating a chaotic royal event where food, transport, and thousands of guests need to perfectly align. An algorithm could flawlessly match supply to the army's exact needs, but that only works if the system is built on trust. If local leaders fear the central government, they will simply use the system to hide their movements even better. Next, we have foresight. For humans, foresight is expensive. It takes decades of observation to recognize subtle patterns, but AI lowers the cost of anticipating risks. It's like watching the surface of a pond, spotting the tiniest ripples long before they escalate into an open rebellion. Yet this creates a profound danger, the illusion of control. Beautiful, clean predictions can easily convince an emperor that the messy reality of history is entirely predictable. And history has a habit of shattering the moment you think you have it perfectly tame. The final lever is authority. And this might be the deepest transformation of all. AI wouldn't replace the emperor, but it would fundamentally reshape who gets consulted and who gets believed. Think of the technology like a giant public loudspeaker. The message broadcasted is important, but what matters far more is who controls the microphone. Power would inevitably gravitate toward the specific officials who interpret, control, and feed data into the machine. The technology doesn't float above the politics. It becomes the politics. So, what happens when we put this historical system under pressure? Imagine the Mughal Empire as a massive, ancient wooden bridge. The AI isn't the bridge itself. It's just extra weight, extra sensors, and extra tools to inspect the beams. But if a beam is already rotting from the inside, seeing it more clearly doesn't magically make the wood any stronger. It just shows you exactly where the collapse will start. Empires break where pressure meets structural weakness, especially in governance and military command. Let's look closely at governance. The introduction of AI creates a massive, empire-wide split. At the center, inside the imperial court, you have incredibly sharp visibility and highly confident policy design. Uncertainty nearly vanishes. But out in the provinces, local elites suddenly find themselves under relentless scrutiny. Their traditional wiggle room entirely evaporates. And when local leaders feel squeezed by a central power, they either fall perfectly in line or they learn to hide their actions much more carefully. The machine removes uncertainty, but it dramatically increases the friction. You might naturally assume that AI would guarantee total military dominance through flawless logistics. And yes, grain and weapons would certainly move faster. But there is a hidden trap waiting on the battlefield: the fatal clash between efficiency and overconfidence. Mughal commanders might be tempted to blindly trust neat, algorithmic forecasts. But war is inherently chaotic. It's full of sudden weather shifts, collapsing morale, and unexpected betrayals. If a general overtrusts the machine, the army operates with supreme efficiency, right up until the exact second it shatters in unfamiliar conditions. Which brings us to the most dangerous breaking point in the entire structure: succession. The Mughal Empire had intense succession struggles baked directly into its political DNA. The fight for the throne wasn't just a clash of swords, it was a ruthless, shadowy war of information. So, what actually happens when competing princes and ambitious court factions suddenly possess perfect data? Far from stabilizing the empire, the technology would supercharge the palace rivalry. First, the algorithm itself becomes the ultimate political prize. Second, it gets weaponized. Princes would use it to ruthlessly hunt for tiny errors or missing tax revenues in their brothers' provinces. And finally, the entire system becomes deeply distrusted. Eventually, no one believes the output anymore because everyone assumes it's been politically manipulated. The machine wouldn't make the royal family wiser. It would make their wars incredibly suspicious, highly informed, and infinitely more brutal. And that brings us to the quietest yet most crucial battlefield: local legitimacy. The Mughal Empire survived through thousands of messy, incredibly human local compromises. But if a central algorithm demands perfect, consistent data, it begins punishing provinces that report irregularities. What the machine flags as suspicious might just be the result of a local drought, a bad harvest, or temporary human struggle, not rebellion. The AI completely flattens these local realities. The center gets exact data, but loses the essential political empathy required to govern a vast, diverse population. When we zoom out and look at the entire board, a fascinating, deeply fragile picture emerges. The system actually pulls against itself. In administration, faster coordination directly breeds surveillance and resistance. In the military, perfect logistics lure generals into catastrophic overconfidence. Inside the palace walls, informed struggles generate endless paranoia. And out on the ground, iron-fisted consistency completely shatters local trust. Which brings us to the ultimate realization of this entire experiment. Power isn't merely the ability to gather more data. True power is the ability to make others accept what you know, act on it, and remain loyal to the system afterward. Stability does not come from the perfect vision of a machine. It comes from the deeply human, delicate balance of knowledge, trust, and coercion. If that fundamental trust is broken, all the data in the universe cannot save the empire from collapsing. Once we learn to look at the past through this lens, the implications for our own time are staggering. Look past the 17th century. If an incredibly powerful tool merely exposes and amplifies the fractures already present in a historical empire, what invisible weaknesses is it amplifying in our modern institutions, corporations, and governments right now? What systems all around us are quietly bending under the weight of perfect information? Keep questioning the systems around you, and thank you for joining us on this exploration today.